He had been sitting there for days, right at the edge of the church gate, where blessings went in and out, but never seemed to stop for him. His shirt was clean but faded, his slippers thin as paper, and his eyes carried the quiet ache of someone who had run out of options. He didn't beg loudly, he didn't chase cars or stretch his hand at everyone. He just sat, morning to night, hoping that someone, anyone, would see him not as a nuisance, but as a man in need. His name was Jude. He had been at the church gate for 2 weeks. He never disturbed anyone, never shouted, never insulted. He would simply greet people as they walked by, offering a hopeful, "Good morning, sir," or "Good afternoon, ma." Some responded, most didn't. Occasionally, a kind woman from the children's department would hand him a sachet of water or a slice of bread wrapped in serviette. Some ushers, especially the younger ones, dropped small change, 100 naira or 200 naira notes folded in their palms. A few others, usually the ones wearing expensive perfumes and wristwatches, walked past him with stiff chins, like he was invisible. Jude never begged for money directly. What he truly longed for was shelter, a safe place to sleep. "Please," he would tell them, "I just need somewhere to stay. I have no family, no one to help." But day after day, people passed, and night after night, he would curl up beside the fence wall, shielding himself from cold, with his backpack as a pillow and a nylon bag over his head when rain came suddenly. Yet somehow, Jude remained grateful. He would whisper small prayers each night, holding his hands together like a child. "Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the bread, for the water, for today." One of the people who always noticed him was Pastor Dapo. Every time Pastor Dapo drove out of the church gate, he would see Jude sitting quietly. Sometimes their eyes met. Once or twice he had slowed his car, handed Jude 1,000 naira and said, "Use it for food." Jude always bowed low, thankful, never asking for more. Pastor Dapo was a good man, a sincere shepherd. His sermons were full of love and his heart always leaned towards the poor. But in this particular matter, he was conflicted. He wanted to help, he really did, but his wife wouldn't allow it. The last time he had brought someone in, someone from the church who claimed to be homeless, he had turned their peaceful home upside down. That day, after the midweek service had ended and the church was quiet again, Pastor Dapo packed his Bible, greeted the last few members, and made his way to his car. As he drove slowly towards the gate, he saw Jude again, this time standing and pacing slowly beside the fence like someone unsure if he should lie down or keep walking. The pastor pulled over. "Hey, young man," he called, stepping out of the car. "You stay here." Jude turned immediately and bowed. "Good evening, sir. Have you not found a place to stay yet?" Jude shook his head slowly. "No, sir. I have tried, but no one wants to help. I'm not a thief. I just need a chance." Pastor Dapo looked him over again. The man was thin but didn't look crazy. His words were clear, his spirit gentle. "Where are you from?" the pastor asked. "I'm from Akure, sir, but my parents are dead and I have been surviving from street to street since I lost my job during the pandemic. I just need a roof, sir, even if it's just a few days." The pastor sighed deeply. His heart ached, but his mind flashed to Shade, his wife. He wished things were different. He reached into his back pocket and brought out 3 500 naira notes. "Here," he said, "use this for food and water tonight. Please, stay safe." Jude collected it with trembling hands, bowed twice and said, "Thank you, sir. Thank you. God bless you, sir." But as Pastor Dapo drove off, something heavy sat in his chest. Even the worship music playing from his car stereo couldn't lift it. When he got home, Shade was in the kitchen preparing yam porridge. The smell of crayfish and palm oil filled the small bungalow. He dropped his bag and loosened his tie. "You look tired," Shade said from the kitchen. "Yes, I am." They ate in silence that evening, but the pastor's mind was still at the church gate. Later that night, after prayers, he sat on the edge of the bed. "Babe," he called softly. "Yes, darling." "There is something I want to talk to you about." She looked up. "That young man at the church gate. He's been there for 2 weeks. I think maybe we should help him." Shade froze. "Help? How?" "I mean, let him stay with us, just for a while. He looks harmless, neat. He's not like those." "A stranger? In our house?" Shade interrupted. "Dapo, have you forgotten so soon what happened the last time we helped someone?" He lowered his head. "Have you forgotten Sister Gift? Or should I remind you?" Shade's voice was rising now. "We took her in because she said her family was relocating to the village and she wanted to pursue her dreams. I fed her, clothed her, begged friends to help us feed her. And what did she do? She went around the church saying I poisoned her food." Dapo closed his eyes, remembering it all. "She said I added something to her food because I gave her vegetable soup and she had stomach cramps. People started whispering that I was wicked, that I was using her destiny. Me." She stood and paced the room, tears tinging her eyes. "I prayed for her. I fasted. I asked God to give her a job so she could just leave this house and stop defaming me. And the Lord heard me. 1 week later, she got a job and moved out without saying thank you." Dapo remained silent. "I can't do it again," Shade said, voice breaking. "I can't bring strangers into this house anymore and get rewarded with shame." She turned off the light, slipped into bed, and faced the wall. The pastor sat alone in the dark for a while, then slid slowly to his knees. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just prayed. "Lord, if it is your will, touch her heart. Speak to her in a way only you can. Let your mercy speak for that man outside. I am helpless without you, Lord." That was the last thing he whispered before finally crawling beside his bed and drifting into sleep. By morning, Shade sat at the edge of the bed, staring out the window. Lost in thoughts, she had barely slept. Something strange had settled on her heart overnight. Not fear, not anger, but an unexplainable stillness. She heard movement beside her as Pastor Dapo stayed awake, rubbing his eyes. "Good morning," he said, voice hoarse. Shade nodded, still distracted. "Good morning." He studied her face for a moment. "You didn't sleep well either." She didn't reply immediately. He sat up, adjusting the pillow behind him. "I have been praying about that man." Shade turned slightly. "The beggar?" He nodded. "His name is Jude." She exhaled slowly. "Shade, I know your concerns. I understand them deeply. But what if this is one of those moments God wants to show us mercy again, even when it's hard?" Her silence encouraged him, so he leaned forward. "I know people have hurt us. I know how Sister Gift nearly broke you. But this man, he's not asking for money or food. He just wanted a safe roof. Just a few nights. I watched him yesterday. He wasn't begging loudly or disturbing anyone. He's humble." Still, she didn't answer. "I didn't sleep much," he added. "I just kept thinking, what if this man was Jesus sitting outside our gate? Would I walk past him too?" That struck a nerve. Shade turned to him slowly. "So, you want me to be like the foolish woman who welcomed armed robbers thinking they were angels?" "That's not what I'm saying." She sat up now. "You quote the Bible about showing kindness to strangers, Hebrews 13:2. But do you remember Proverbs 14:15? The simple believe every word, but the prudent give thought to his steps. And you know what? Wisdom is profitable to direct." Pastor Dapo smiled weakly. "You've always been the wiser one." "This isn't about wisdom. It's about pain," she said. her voice softening. I was humiliated by people I fed with my last pot of soup, people I defended with my own dignity. Do you know how many family members I begged for money just to take care of people that ended up calling me names? Dapo reached out for her hand. I know, and I've never forgotten, but maybe, just maybe this one is different. She looked away for a while, then she whispered, he can stay. His eyes widened, but she raised a finger. The moment he acts funny or I sense anything strange, he's out. Agreed? Dapo nodded like a child just granted a Christmas wish. Agreed. That evening, Jude entered their compound for the first time. He stood at the door, hesitant, holding a small bag in both hands. Shade eyed him from head to toe. He bowed quickly and greeted, "Good evening, ma. Thank you for letting me come in." "Come inside," she said plainly. "But let me make this clear. No lies, no funny behavior. I don't do nonsense." "Yes, ma," Jude said, still bowing. They set him up in the boys' room beside the kitchen, small, with a foam mattress and one standing fan. Jude thanked them repeatedly, holding back tears. From the very next morning, he began to show who he truly was. Before 6 a.m., he had swept the entire compound, wiped the plastic chairs in the corridor, and was scrubbing the kitchen floor. Shade entered and stared at him. "Did anyone tell you to do that?" "No, ma," he said, smiling. "I just noticed the floor was dusty." When the laundry piled up, he offered to wash. When the car was dusty, he wiped it down. When food was boiling over, he was the one rushing to lower the flame. But he never crossed boundaries. He never asked unnecessary questions. He never disrespected Pastor or Shade. 3 weeks passed. Then, one morning, as Shade prepared egusi soup in the kitchen, she noticed him watching the pot closely. "You want to learn how to cook?" she teased. He chuckled. "Auntie, I can cook small, but this your soup smells powerful." She laughed, a rare thing for her. That became a routine. They cooked together often. Jude would cut vegetables, pound yam, or rinse plates while Shade handled the spices. He would gist, talk about market prices, even argue about salt. It became their unspoken therapy. Soon, church members began to notice. "Pastor's wife and that beggar, they're always together in the kitchen," one usher whispered. "I thought he was just staying there temporarily." Another chorister said, "It's 5 weeks now. Are you sure he's not our cousin?" The gossip grew louder. Someone even asked Pastor Dapo directly, "Sir, that young man, is he related to you?" Pastor just smiled. "He's family in Christ." But the whisper didn't stop. Still, Jude stayed respectful. One Saturday afternoon, Shade was preparing jollof rice when she paused and turned to him. "Jude, you're very different," she said, suddenly serious. He looked up from where he was peeling onions. "Ma? I said you're not like others. I didn't want my husband to bring you here. In fact, I almost fought him." He laughed gently. "I can imagine. But now, I'm glad I agreed. You've been so helpful, peaceful." She wiped her hands and leaned on the wall. "We've had so many betrayals, Jude, so many." He nodded silently. "There was one lady, Ajoke, no job, no food, no family. We took her in. I begged my own relatives for money just to feed her. And do you know what she said? She told people that we were living large on church money, that we were eating turkey every week, that I was showing off, all because I tried to make her feel welcome." Jude's jaw tightened. People forget the hands that feed them. She shook her head. "I never told anyone this, but my own cousins insulted me. They said I was stupid for marrying a poor pastor. One even said, 'Since you like playing Mother Teresa, keep begging us for money to feed your church people.'" Jude was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry you went through that, Ma, but your reward is not from people. It is from God." She nodded slowly. Then he asked a question that would shift everything. "Ma, What about your children? Are they in boarding school or... Shade stiffened. She opened her mouth to lie, to brush it off. But something nudged her spirit. Do not tell lies. Tell him the truth. She exhaled. We are hoping on God. We've been married for 15 years and no child yet. Jude looked at her, not with pity, but with something deeper, compassion. I am so sorry, he said gently. She shrugged. I have heard worse. One lady we helped once said I have damaged my womb. That's why I can't conceive. Jude was silent. His heart cracked, but he didn't cry. He simply looked up and said, Ma, I believe God can still do it. Shade smiled weakly. We believe though. Jude didn't say much again after their conversation, but something shifted in him. That night, Jude laid on his mattress, eyes wide open. He turned to face the wall and whispered, Lord, do it for her. Do it for them. Give them a child. Let their shame turn to laughter. His voice was soft, no dramatics, no tears, just honest, quiet communion. From that day on, Jude became a watchman over the family. Every night, when the rest of the house was asleep, he would sit up quietly and pray. His words were few, but filled with fire, the kind of fire that burns without smoke. He didn't shout, he didn't groan, he simply knelt by his bed and spoke with God. One night, about 2 weeks into his private intercession, Shade woke up to use the bathroom. As she passed the hallway towards the kitchen, she noticed a faint sound, almost like humming. She followed it quietly. There, through the slightly open door, she saw him. Jude was on his knees, head bowed, hands lifted. A small Bible lay open beside him on the floor. He didn't see her watching. And Lord, he whispered, you opened the womb of Hannah. You remembered Sarah. Please, remember Mommy Shade. Show her mercy. Wipe away her tears. Take away her shame. Shade stood frozen. Her throat tightened. She tiptoed back to her room without saying a word. But her heart wasn't the same again. As the days rolled into weeks, Jude remained faithful. Still waking early, still hopping around the house, still praying at night. His closeness with Shade remained respectful and clean, but also deeply caring. They shared honest conversations, cooked together, and even prayed together when Pastor Dapo was away. Some church members noticed she looked lighter, not in body, but in spirit. The weight that had once darkened her eyes was lifting. Then one Sunday morning, during choir ministration, Shade suddenly became dizzy. She held the edge of her chair and leaned back, eyes fluttering. A sister beside her whispered, Are you okay, ma? I don't know, she replied. I feel lightheaded. After service, she told her husband, It's probably malaria, he said. Let's pick up anti-malaria drugs on our way home. For 2 days, she rested, drinking pap and taking her medication, but the tiredness didn't go away. Then, Jude approached her gently one morning. Mommy Shade, I know this might sound strange, but can I suggest something? She raised an eyebrow, smiling faintly. You want to give me herbs? He laughed. No man, not herbs, just a test. She frowned. What kind of test? Pregnancy test. She blinked, then burst into laughter. You this guy. Pregnancy at 42? He smiled but didn't flinch. Please ma, just to be sure. She rolled her eyes. Jude, I've had this dizziness before. It's always malaria or stress. He said nothing, just watched her with gentle eyes. Something in her spirit nudged her again. Later that afternoon, she went to the nearby diagnostic lab out of pure curiosity. I just want to rule it out, she told the nurse. I'm not expecting anything. Just test and let me rest. When the nurse returned with the results, she had a strange smile on her face. Ma, congratulations, you are 8 weeks pregnant. Shade stared at the paper, blinking rapidly. I'm what? Pregnant, ma. 2 months gone. Her hands shook. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For several seconds, she simply stood there, trembling, stunned, unable to breathe. When she got home, she didn't say anything at first. She entered the house, went straight to her room and shut the door. She sat on the bed with the result still clutched in her hand. Then slowly, the tears came. She cried like someone who had just seen a long-lost child return. Tears of confusion, of shock, of joy, and fear. "Lord, how?" she whispered. Dapo returned from a pastoral visit to find her on the bed, eyes swollen, holding a test paper. "Shade, what happened?" he asked, panicked. She held up the result. He took it, read it once, then again. He looked at her, eyes wide. "Pregnant?" he whispered. She nodded. He sat down slowly. "Pregnant after 15 good years." Shade covered her mouth and sobbed. Dapo pulled her into his arms, and together they wept. News spread fast among trusted friends. The pastor's wife, pregnant at last. Many were speechless. Some cried. Others couldn't believe it until they saw her. But the pregnancy wasn't easy. By the second trimester, Shade had severe back pain, random weakness, and fainting spells. Through it all, Jude never stopped helping. He cooked her meals, cleaned the house, and reminded her to take her vitamins. Every church member began to respect him. "Mommy Shade is glowing," one sister said. "It's this boy, oh, he's a helper sent from heaven." Jude never said much. He only smiled and continued serving. One night, Shade called him into the sitting room. "Jude, sit." He obeyed. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Why have you stayed this long? Helping, praying, loving us like this?" Jude looked down. "I was once abandoned too," he said, "by a church I trusted. I was homeless, broken, but I told God, if I ever found another family, I would serve them with all my heart." Shade was silent. He added, "This is not repayment, it's assignment. I was sent here for you." She began to cry again, and Jude did what he always did best. He bowed his head and prayed. It was a rainy night in September when Shade went into labor. Lightning flashed across the sky as Pastor Dapo rushed about the room, grabbing the hospital bag while Shade leaned against the wall, groaning. "Call Jude! Call Jude!" she gasped between contractions, but Jude was already at the door, holding an umbrella, ready to help. They rushed her to the hospital just in time. The labor was long, complicated. There were moments when the nurses whispered, when the doctors wore a worried face, when the machines beeped in an unfamiliar rhythm. But Jude didn't flinch. He didn't shout, he didn't cry. He simply stood outside the delivery room, praying under his breath like a man on assignment. And after what felt like forever, the nurse emerged, soaked in sweat but smiling. "It's twins," she said. "Two boys, both alive, both healthy." Jude dropped to his knees right there in the corridor. Pastor Dapo stepped out with tears rolling freely down his face. "He did it," he whispered. "God did it." Jude stood, placed a hand on his shoulder and nodded. "I told her, he never forgets his people." The Thanksgiving ceremony held the following month, and it wasn't just another church program. It was a revival. The church was packed from wall to wall. Women came with wrappers over their shoulders. Men came in their finest native wear. Every member who hadn't been to church in months returned just to witness the miracle. Shade walked into the auditorium, holding one of the babies, glowing in a purple lace gown. Her face was full, her eyes bright. Beside her was Dapo, carrying the second twin. Behind them was Jude, dressed in a clean white native outfit, smiling quietly. When Pastor Dapo mounted the altar, the crowd erupted in praise. "Today," he said, holding the microphone with trembling hands, "we don't just dedicate these children, we dedicate our testimony." The crowd clapped. He took a deep breath. "Many of you know Jude. You saw him at the gate. You probably walked past him. Some of you may have judged him, but today, let me tell you who he really is." He told the full story, how Jude came as a beggar, how he had nowhere to sleep, how Shade had initially resisted, how they had prayed, how Jude became not just a guest but family, a helper, a silent intercessor. How many of you know that Jude was the one who first suggested a pregnancy test? The pastor asked. Gaps filled the room. While some of us were saying malaria, the young man was praying secretly for our breakthrough. The church was silent. Then the pastor turned to Jude. We've decided to name one of our sons after you. There were murmurs of joy across the room. Jude covered his face, tears streaming down. Shade added, You may have come as a stranger, Jude, but you are now my son. The month passed. Jude remained in the house, helping, serving, and praying. But something inside him began to stir. One early morning, as they sat together on the veranda, he turned to Pastor Dapo. Sir, I think my time here is done. The pastor turned slowly. Why? There is another gate. Jude replied softly. Someone else waiting for help. I was sent to you and I have finished my assignment here. Shade walked in with the babies and overheard the conversation. Her face fell. You want to leave us? She asked. No, he said gently. I will never truly leave you. You're my family. But my calling is to go where others are overlooked, like I once was. They didn't argue. They understood. A week later, they threw him a small farewell dinner. The church gave him gifts. Some members even slipped money into his hands, apologizing for the time they ignored him. As he walked out the gate that morning, bag over his shoulder, Shade stood at the door with the twins in her arms. Jude, she called, wherever you go, may God go with you. He turned, smiled, and waved. I believe he already has. And now to the lesson of this story. Don't let the pain of the past harden your heart. Yes, people may have used you, lied against you, turned your kindness into gossip. But don't close the door on compassion, because you never know which act of help will open the door to your destiny. Shade almost missed a miracle because of past betrayal. But the time she chose to help again, to trust again, was the very act that unlocked the blessing she had prayed for 15 good years. So here is the truth. Not everyone will pay you back with pain. Not every stranger will destroy you. Sometimes, the person you're afraid to help is the one carrying your miracle. Don't give up on helping others. Your breakthrough might be wrapped in the same need you are tempted to ignore. I hope you enjoyed this story. You will love the next one. Click to watch it now. Goodbye.